You're watching The Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli. You can check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli, and see a lot of the wonderful comics that I'm currently working on in various stages of completion. And you can follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.
Okay, we just freshly did a episode about the Masters of the Universe, like the new Masters of the Universe that came out on Netflix. Well, guess what? Like 2 weeks later, Netflix has a whole other unrelated Masters of the Universe thing, like CGI. Like it's interesting to me that such a thing would happen. Like I don't know if maybe it was like a COVID era thing where maybe they held off one of them and whatever,
they were supposed to be staggered or something.
Yeah, but it was very weird to me, like right on top of each other.
When you had mentioned you were watching that, I was like, well, all right, the next 5 episodes. Season, yeah. I was like, no, a completely different show.
Thing. Yeah, kind of caught me by surprise. But and it's kind of weird to be doing 2 different Masters of the Universe episodes almost back to back like this, like for our show. But if we're sort of covering, pop culture and current pop culture, like it feels like that is like maybe the rate at which things are going. That these things aren't like now that things are starting to come out, like they're coming out at like a rapid rate, and where stuff just has like a minute to breathe, and then
it's like you just finished Revelations, and it's right back into it.
And I was trying to get my head around, and like it kind of makes, I mean, it's 2 completely different approaches to the material, and it seemed to me like 2 completely different target audiences.
Yes,
like where the Masters of the Universe Revelation is maybe targeted to like our demographic, and then this is like, okay, this new one, which I don't even know, it's just called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, right?
Yeah.
So the other one's Masters of the Universe Revelation. This is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, but that this one's like designed, it seems like for kids, like for kids today. It's got like a DreamWorks look. Like I was gonna say like a Pixar, but like Pixar's a little more like little more better designed. Where DreamWorks is a little more down and dirty, and this was like a little more like kind of down and dirty design wise.
And some little kids like He-Man's my favorite thing now because
I
saw this.
I like Minions and I like He-Man. He-Man is so rooted to like the 80s and its original incarnation and stuff, and it's like it is this thing that was initially designed for kids. All those kids are like old now, so it's like, is there any life left in this thing where like you could create it for like new generation? Because I know some of these properties have that like there's some properties that become kind of like evergreen, but then there's some that have like a little bit of problem. Like I know like G.I. Joe had that problem, or maybe still has that problem. But like so He-Man was one, and I thought it was really interesting because like we had that Revelations where they really didn't. It wasn't like a radical reinvention. It was pretty much a continuation, amped up a little bit, but more or less continued in the spirit of the original thing. This is like, we're going to take it apart and put it back together like from the ground up, like radically different, I thought.
Yeah, because I was, when I was watching, I've watched a couple of the episodes here. As I was watching the show, I would like see the design, see them like talking, and then like be like, that looks awesome. Who is that?
Yes, that's
how. Yeah, and I like that kind of like. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit like a puzzle, and I enjoyed it too. Yeah. Where it was like, who is that? And then sometimes, and then they'd maybe like fit into the established mythology in like an interesting way or a different way, and
it was fun.
Yeah, it was. The puzzle was a fun puzzle, and it felt like. And I'm all for that kind of reinvention. Like, go for it. Like take something apart, and because like one of the criticisms of like what we've seen so far of the Eternals is like people like, I look at that, I don't see Jack Kirby anywhere. I don't. But like to me, it's like, well, it's kind of interesting to like. Of course, I'd love to see like a thing that looks like, oh, you took the Jack Kirby comic and put it right on the screen. Like, that would be cool. I'd love that. But I also like the idea of like, okay, if this thing that Jack Kirby came up with is worth its salt, then you should be able to like strip it down to a point where it's almost unrecognizable, and then build it up and still like feel, still feel like the eternalness of it come through, or the Jack. And I feel like that possibly that is what they're going to do, and I'm excited about that. And it was kind of like that with, because like you look at it and you don't really see the Masters of the Universe that we know.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, because like, if it wasn't called He-Man or you didn't know the title, you'd just be like, I'm picking up. It's like the vibes and the.
That's what I wondered too, because it felt so redesigned from the ground up, and I was like, was it like something somebody came up with, and then they kind of talked to Mattel, or they pitched it to Mattel and said, "Hey, what if we turn this into He-Man?" Or like Mattel was developing it as some separate thing, and they're like, you know what, with a couple adjustments, we could make this a He-Man. Or like I don't like it's, but that's interesting to me to like, reinvent something so much. Like to that degree, it kind of reminded me, and I'm sure this was probably intentional, kind of reminded me of the New Adventures of He-Man. Like when He-Man got real sci-fi'd up and became like this is very sci-fi.
There was a point when I kind of like my He-Man, I was just like on the peripheral, and that was around the time they did like the Matty Collector kind of like like where you had to like order the figures before, and I think that I watched some, but I'm not too.
He-Man had a ponytail.
Yeah. That was one of like I was at like my trough for He-Man.
Yeah, I was like intrigued by it. Like I was very and it at the time it felt to me like an upgrade. It was like yes, he because like He-Man was like like when I was a kid, He-Man was like the first toy to go out of style. Like kids I knew stopped playing with He-Man, but they were still playing with G.I. Joe.
Yes.
And Transformers. But He-Man was kind of like, that's kids stuff. And so when the New Adventures of He-Man came around, I was like, this is like they did it. They figured out a way to kind of make it, kind of grow up with the kids who are growing up with it. And then it just didn't work out. But I liked the New Adventures of He-Man, and I loved like the credit sequence. Credit had like amazing animation and stuff. And I like the idea of like sci-fiing it up. And like turning it into like a real space opera where it's like Starship Eternia and all that kind of stuff. But like it seems like they applied that kind of thing to He-Man too. Here it is far less of like this kind of like Dungeons and Dragons fantasy world, or like this Conan
sci-fi
fantasy world. Yeah, sci-fi barbarian. It's like way more of like a space opera, like a Star Wars-y kind of setup.
Yeah, even like the little like robots and like creatures.
Yeah, because around. You might not have gotten up to this point yet, but Orko is a robot in it. I hope I didn't blow it. Orko's a robot. But like so, it does. You know what else it reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of like the Final Fantasy series. Oh. How like the first couple of Final Fantasy games are kind of like rooted in this like Dungeons and Dragons setup, and then like there are sci-fi elements that creep in, just like in He-Man. But then like the later Final Fantasy, like Final Fantasy VII, like the later stuff just becomes like just all out sci-fi. There's just like the barest remnant of that kind of like Dungeons and Dragons feel, but it's mostly like,
you're right. This is like going down that road.
Yeah, it's kind of like the later Final Fantasies, but like for kids. And of course, to make it more geared towards kids, instead of having like boring stuff like, oh, there's Duncan and he's got a mustache and he's Tila's dad. It's like snore, snooze.
The little kid.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and meanwhile, like
Duncan
with
a mustache.
Yeah, Duncan.
It's like my brain receptors are firing.
Like,
I love it.
Like Man-at-Arms with that mustache. Like he couldn't even play a dad. He would be Grampy. Grampy is the guy with the mustache. Dad has like Dad would look like you. Like Dad has like a beard, and he and Dad's kind of got something, but like Grampy's the stern guy with the mustache who like don't fuck with Grampy. So instead
Grampy at arms.
Yeah, Grampy at arms. So instead, old man at arms. So instead, it's like it's complete reinvention. It's like everybody's a kid. So like Man at Arms is a kid. Teal a kid, so she's not Man-at-Arm's daughter. Like they've kind of like really, just like kind of like we're starting from scratch. And the designs, I really like the designs, and I was like, those toys actually look pretty
Yeah.
cool, you know. I hope that at the next shareholders meeting, Mattel shows a strong fourth quarter growth in you know, the pre-K demographic. You know, like
I'm like giving like a PowerPoint.
Yeah, it's bad. Like this is taking like fandom to a new level where you're like, oh, the stock price of Mattel. Mattel's. I mean, I think Mattel probably is in pretty bad shape because like when I'm looking at like. You know, like some like you know Marvel toys or whatever, and so it's all Hasbro as far as the eye can see. Like I didn't even know. Like I thought Hasbro owned Mattel, but apparently they don't. Apparently Mattel's still Mattel's like the last holdout. Like it's only a matter of time.
You wish
like
Kenner was still.
Yeah, because like Hasbro owns Kenner.
Yeah.
Like, if this new He-Man thing bombs, maybe Hasbro's gonna scoop up. The logo for this Masters of the Universe thing, it was like Mattel Television, and I was thinking they should call it Mattel in Television. That's what they should call their TV production. They should call it revive the Intellivision.
Mattel-vision.
Mattel in Television. You know, revive that. You know, like He-Man. Like again, like. I'm worried about. Oh, I sure hope those kids keep buying. Because if the kids don't keep He-Man alive, like what's the point? It's not selling till they were remaindered. They're remaindered. I can't go on. It's like, and it does give itself like a reason to be because it is different enough. Like if you had two, you know, but again, like I can also be critical. Like the He-Man is practically unrecognizable as He-Man. Like, you know what I mean? Like I like that they gave him the big sword, you know, because it's like, again, it's like we're going for like more current look. So it's like, you know, the giant sword, you know, like Berserk or Bastard or whatever. It's like, you know, the giant sword is like a staple. But like He-Man's got freckles. I don't know how I feel about like everything else in this show. I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. He-Man with freckles. I don't know. There's this like little there was like this little like green cub when like when Adam is first introduced. There's this like little green cub that like you think like, oh, that's gonna be Cringer because it's like an origin story, like and which is also pretty smart because you never saw the origin in the cartoon, and like the only origin you saw in the like little mini comics or whatever was like the sort of like abandoned origin of like He-Man coming from his tribe and going into like, you know, the Badlands or whatever and all that stuff. But they never had like in the cartoon, you know, I'm Prince Adam, and great powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, "By the power of Grayskull." So that's the only like backstory you got. Like, but we never got to see that filmed. We never got to see, you know, Prince Adam find this sword and have strange powers. So like, it's kind of smart to like, that's like the premise of this series. It's like we're gonna show you the origin story that's only like talked about in that intro. You know, which we've never seen in any form before.
I like when the cats have the
claws. They have the claws. So that little baby, we thought like, oh, I feel like they're trying to sell you that like, oh, this is going to be Cringer, and then you like it, you know, the camera moves or whatever, and you see there's like another like a big, you know, cat, and then that ends up being Cringer, and he's not cowardly or timid in any way, shape, or form.
He has like some scars on his face too.
Yeah, he feels like he's out of like, you know, the Lion King and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I just, you know, really liked it. I liked seeing like an origin story for him, and it did kind of strike me like, oh yeah, we've never seen that before. We never saw it in the canon film. Never saw it in the in the old cartoon. Maybe it was in the 2000s cartoon. Like still haven't had a chance to check all those out.
I definitely need to score those.
But I thought that was cool, doing like an origin and how everybody meets, and the origin of Skeletor, and he's Keldor. Like all these things we've gotten like hints of in the lore, but never really got like a
because in even in Revelations, remember he was a hero.
Yeah.
What wasn't he like an old design or something from the?
Well, they had Hero, who was like kind of like. I don't know if he was introduced or he was going to be introduced, but it was going to be like this next wave of like Preternia. And then there was Eldor, which wasn't released until like they did like this, these new like reissues of it. But like, but the one you're talking about is like, I forget what his name was, but he was like the prototype He-Man,
Oh, yeah.
the one that was like the first like mock-up that they made. Yeah, and he's like, he looks very much like Conan. But yeah, it was just kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. You're doing a new He-Man cartoon. Let's do that origin we never got to see, and then do it in this, like complete thorough top to bottom reinvention, which again still feels like the Castle Grayskull design was great, and I liked Skeletor's origin. I liked the presentation of Skeletor, like sort of Keldor and then Skeletor. I like his voice. Like we talked about the voice of Skeletor, and like this is more to my liking. This kind of like, that's Skeletor. And then there was like Evelyn, she's called Evelyn in this, and then eventually she'll become Evelyn. And then there was like a green guy. And I'm like, who is that green guy? And they called him Kronos. And like, if I were more up on my, He-Man, I would have known from Kronos. But it's like this green guy. I'm like, who is he? I'm like, is he going to be Beast Man? Like, is he going to grow a bunch of orange fur and become Beast Man? I'm like, he's green. Is he going to become Moss Man? And then, yeah, like, who's this green guy going? Or is he a totally unique guy? Because again, it is kind of exciting being in this like world where like really anything can happen. But he ends up being Trapjaw, and because Trapjaw's real name was Cronus or whatever. And
there is that.
There's like a toy,
two-pack,
where it's like an alternate universe version of him, and he's called Cronus. But yeah, like he breaks his jaw in like episode 2 or something, and then he has to get this like mechanical. So like that kind of, like again, like you were saying, this guessing game was kind of fun, and like they took elements of like the sorceress and then applied them to Teela. Like there's this one character where she starts getting these powers, and she has these like jets, and she can and I'm thinking, is she supposed to be like Dragstore or something? But then it was like, oh no, she's like this new iteration of Ram Man. She like gets like sort of rockets that give her like ram.
Dude, I'm loving where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we're not like the dead on target audience, but I think they were probably hoping that some like old school old heads, like classic Masters of the Universe. But like, I'm not I wasn't going to not check it. I see this new Masters of the Universe thing. I'm like, I'm checking this out.
You're like,
yeah, I'm not, oh, this is for kids. Never, it's like, I mean, so much of the stuff that I'm into was like originally designed for kids, like, and I was a kid when a lot of this stuff came out. But like He-Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, all this stuff was designed for kids. And then even you go broader to like the Marvel comics, Spider-Man, Captain America, like all this, Batman, Superman, Swamp Thing. This stuff was designed ostensibly for kids. It's just that you'd have these like creators and talents and writers and artists who would bring all this depth to the material, and then it becomes like the modern day mythology or whatever. I got like 2 more episodes to go, but I really, isn't it funny that like this sort of like the He-Man for grown-ups got 5 episodes, and but then the one for kids is like 12.
Full season.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like they're trying to sell some toys, and it's like, yes, you can sell sort of like boutique toys to like an older audience, blah blah blah. But like if you really want to make the big bucks in the toy biz, like you got to get kids on board, or you're pretty much just like wasting your time. When I saw Orko was a robot, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be controversial. This is gonna divide the MOTU community right down the middle.
Oh my god, Orko's a robot.
Orko's a robot. I think Orko.
Oh my god, I can't believe Orko's a robot.
I think like Orko, you can kind of
a monster.
Nobody's too wrapped up in Orko, where it's like, yeah, do what you want with Orko. Like He-Man with freckles, I don't know, but like Orko a robot, yeah, go for it, have a party. The Castle Grayskull looks super cool, and so like when I was watching that show, I'm like, oh, this is like obviously designed for toys. So then I started like looking up, seeing like what toys are out, and then I saw the Castle Grayskull. I'm like, I got to see this toy.
I haven't seen any toys for this in real life.
I haven't seen them in real life. I've only seen them online. But next time I'm at Target or whatever, I want to check it out, see what's there. But the Castle Grayskull on the show was like amazing, and it looked like, oh, if you made a toy of this, it would have all kinds of cool functionality and stuff. And then, but looking online, it looks like there's no Castle Grayskull for this yet.
I can't wait. I need to. I haven't even seen any online pictures, so that's exciting.
Yeah. It does, like, again, you talk about toyetic design. These designs feel very toyetic. They look like they're, kind of like just made to be cool looking toy.
That's awesome. I hope some people tune into this on Netflix. And
yeah, it's interesting, like, having these two things kind of like head to head. I feel like, I mean, I haven't seen like the react. I'm curious to see how people react, because again, like in the comics verse, a lot of people are coming down hard on like the Eternals because of what a departure it was from like the Kirby comic. This is such a departure from Masters of the Universe. I feel like there's gonna be some blowback, but like I'm all for it. Like I think they have a home run and created something really cool. And again, like I said, like your mileage may vary, but like I love the new adventures of He-Man. So if you're doing a reinvention of He-Man with an eye towards more of a new adventures, it's funny because like when the show started, and like we're seeing all these characters in these prototype forms and stuff, and it's like so like we're seeing like the origin stories of all these characters, and then and did you notice King Randor is like a little bit of an asshole in it?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, oh, that's like my pitch for like my He-Man, where like there was going to be a little more of an antagonism between Prince Adam and Randor.
Great pitch, Bob.
Thank you. Go watch our previous Masters of the Universe episode, and you'll see my pitch, which I never sent in, like the full pitch I never sent in, but we sent in like a couple images and stuff. But I did this like more elaborate Masters of the Universe story as part of like a pitch to DC Comics, which I never sent them. So I'm not saying they like ripped off my King Randor is a dick element, but seeing these like origin stories and seeing these like versions of the characters that were like pretty unfamiliar, and then like you said, it's like, well, who's that? And sometimes it would turn out to be and then you're making your guesses. So like you're seeing all these origin stories and stuff, and so I thought like, oh, some disaster is about to happen to this super high tech version, this like high science fiction space opera, like robots and spaceships version of Eternia. Some like disaster is going to happen. Some like explosion, magic based explosion, nuclear bomb, whatever. Something's going to happen to like reduce it to rubble, where you get like the Eternia we know, where it's all these like wastelands, and, like where it's like this wasteland or this castle, and then you see this like bits of like a spaceship half buried, or like a guy who's like a caveman or something, but then he's got like a robot arm or something. Like that's how we're gonna but apparently not. But that was my first thought.
That'd be sick.
Unless they're saving it as like a big season 2 swerve. But as of now, I'm up to like the next to last episode or something. So it's everything's still this sort of like high Star Wars-y, Flash Gordon, Star Trek kind of setup.
I can't wait to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm looking for it went down easy. Like it was a like a confection. Like it was really just like this
20-some minutes per episode.
Yeah. A lot of fun. And then they'd always have this cool like hand drawn graphic at the end of like these kind of like comic drawings on like these like line art drawings of like the characters, and it felt very video gamey too. Like they would have like little glyphs and like little little graphic like little buttons or whatever. Like it felt it's got a real pop aesthetic. Like I think they got a hit,
and it goes down easy, like you said.
Yeah, it's kind of not it's like not too challenging, especially like and I was kind of like watching it and like working at the same time, so it was kind of like the perfect thing to just kind of like half pay attention to.
The
and again, there's a strong contrast between Prince Adam and He-Man, which I think is essential, and which I think was missing from like the original He-Man cartoon. That like He-Man and Prince Adam are pretty put Arnold Schwarzenegger to shame, both of them, and that
Prince Adam's He-Man? You don't say. There's a cornucopia of like the bounty.
Anytime somebody complains about like, oh, these Marvel movies, they suck. Fuck these Marvel movies. It's like, that seems very ingrained. I mean, like, if you're somebody who never liked this kind of shit, fine, or whatever. But it seems very ingracious. For like, when you think back to, like, when there were, like, just no superhero, like, you'd get, like, a Christopher Reeve Superman, and then you'd get the Swamp Thing, and then you'd wait,
Punisher,
like, 5 years, and then you get Michael Keaton Batman, and then you wait, like, a bunch of years, and you get in the Punisher the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, and then, like, eventually you get, like, an X-Men movie, and it's like, thank God. And then you get and then all of a sudden we're getting all the, like we're so lucky to get all this stuff. And same thing, it's like,
what a time to be a Masters of the Universe fan.
Exactly. Can you really complain if there's, like, boom, boom, two like He-Man things,
coming.
one after the other, and you got this, like, She-Ra thing a couple years ago, and there's, like, a Thundercats, like,
cool toys too,
super cool toy. Like, the toy section is like,
it's popping these days.
Everything else sucks, but, like, pop culture is, like, firing on all cylinders.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah. So, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life, The King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design. And you know what? I made probably like my signature work is Transformers versus G.I. Joe. So, like, why would you be shocked that I'm, like, going on and on about, like, He-Man
we can't get enough.
Yeah, so, and you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli, and check out my Patreon, and go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli. I got a couple, like, little
Did you have something brewing over on your Patreon?
Yeah, I got some Masters of the Universe stuff there that you can check out. Some He-Man related stuff, and you can follow me on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.